give you an example from a friend of mine. He's a deceased friend. His name is Charles Spurgeon. I look forward to meeting him in heaven, but he is one of the greatest Bible teachers in the history of the world, somebody I've studied very diligently. And he started as an 18-year-old boy preacher in London, England, a dead, dying, formerly large church, hired this young, Holy Spirit anointed boy preacher to teach the Bible at their church, and their church exploded. But for some years early in his ministry, he was still single. And the local paper really went after him there in London. And one of the things that they reported was that he was a ladies' man and a player and took advantage of young women. So they actually printed a story that young women would show up early to hear the megachurch pastor preach. He had a church of 5,000 or 6,000, which was the biggest known church in the history of the world of that day. And the report was given that young women would show up early and they'd all get dressed up and they'd sit in the front row and just kind of fawn over the pastor. And that they would go up to the platform like Cinderella and they would take one shoe off and they would leave it on the platform, hoping that he would come to their house and it would fit their foot and they'd live happily ever after. Well, that was scandalous in that day. And it never happened. It never, like 0 gals left a shoe. And he had no inappropriate relations with any woman. And it was a lie that devastated him. He struggled with depression his whole life. He said it was like fighting the mist. And what killed him was the story was reported falsely, and it was reported in the London newspaper, and then it was picked up by the international newswire. This means like Reuters or the Associated Press, that all of a sudden the story just got printed in hundreds, thousands of newspapers all around the world, including the United States of America. He followed up with the press in London, and they eventually printed a retraction. Sorry, we lied about Charles Haddon Spurgeon. But the newswire never picked up the retraction. And all anybody ever heard across the world was that he took advantage of young women and manipulated them. And he said it really haunted him for his entire life, because as he would travel and do media interviews, particularly those from America, they would always go back to that point. So Spurgeon, why did you take advantage of young women? Oh, not again. Imagined if he lived today. Imagined if he lived today. And you and I, it's incumbent upon us as worshipers of the one true God to worship him in spirit and what? Truth. That's what Jesus says.